March 15th, 2018, 7:30 a.m. I was standing in the middle of a cornfield in central Iowa. 2,100 acres. My grandfather bought the first 200 acres in 1952. My father added 600 more in 1980. I added the rest. The soil was black. The sky was gray. I had a loan payment due in 3 weeks. $180,000. I wasn't worried. Not yet. My name is Harold. I was 58 years old. Third-generation farmer. I grew up on this land. I learned to drive a tractor at 12. I learned to read the weather at 15. I learned to hate banks at 25. But I also learned to respect them. You can't farm without borrowing. Equipment, seeds, fertilizer, land. It all costs money. I had $6.3 million in assets. Land, machinery, grain bins. I had $2.1 million in debt. I was comfortable. I was not rich. In 2018, corn prices were $3.80 a bushel. Not great. Not terrible. I could make a living. I could pay my loans. I could put food on the table. My wife, Martha, worked at a dental office. She made $45,000 a year. We had health insurance through her job. We had a modest house. A 2015 Ram 2500. A 2016 Ford Fusion. We were fine. Then the trade war started. Trump versus China. Tariffs on both sides. China stopped buying American corn. Prices dropped to $3.20. Then $2.90. Then $2.60. I was losing money on every bushel. I held. I didn't sell. I waited for the trade war to end. It didn't. In 2019, prices recovered to $3.50. I sold some. I paid my loans. I survived. But I was tired. I was 59. I wanted to retire. I wanted to leave something for my son, Tom. He was 32. He wanted to take over the farm. But he needed land. He needed equipment. He needed money. I promised him I would pass it on. He believed me. In early 2020, I made a decision. I was going to expand. I was going to plant more corn. I was going to bet on prices going up. I took out a $1.25 million loan from Farm Credit Services. Interest rate 5.8%. I bought 400 more acres. $8,000 an acre. I bought a new combine. $520,000. I bought a new planter. $180,000. I bought more fertilizer. $90,000. I was all in. Tom came to me. He said, "Dad, this is too much risk." I said, "I know what I'm doing." He said, "You don't. Prices could drop." I said, "They won't." He said, "You don't know that." I said, "I've been farming longer than you've been alive." He walked away. He didn't come back for a week. In 2020, corn prices averaged $3.60. Not enough. I broke even. No profit. No loss. I told myself it was okay. I told myself 2021 would be better. I told Tom, "See, I didn't lose money." He said, "You didn't make any either." I didn't answer. In 2021, prices climbed to $4.20 in the spring, then $4.80 in the summer, then $5.10 in the fall. I had a good harvest, 220 bushels per acre, 2,500 acres, 550,000 bushels. At $5.10, that's $2.8 million in revenue. My costs were $2.2 million. Profit, $600,000. I paid down my loans. I had $1.1 million left on the $1.25 million loan. I was making progress. Tom came back. He said, "Sell now, Dad. Take the profit." I said, "Prices are going higher." He said, "You don't know that." I said, "I can feel it." He said, "You're guessing." I said, "That's what farming is." He walked away again. That was the last time we talked about farming. In early 2022, corn futures hit $6.80, the highest in a decade. War in Ukraine. Supply chain problems. Fertilizer prices were up. Fuel was up, but corn was up more. I was sitting on 400,000 bushels in my grain bins, worth $2.7 million. I owed $1.1 million on my loan. I had $1.6 million in equity. I was 61 years old. I had never had so much. I should have sold. I should have locked in the profit. I should have paid off the loan. I should have retired. I should have called Tom. I didn't. I thought prices would go to $8. I thought $9. I thought $10. I had heard stories from my grandfather. Corn at $7 in 1974. Corn at $8 in 2012. I wanted my story. I wanted to be the farmer who sold at the peak. I wanted Tom to see that I was right. I held. April 2022. Prices started to fall. $6.80 to $6.50. I said it was a correction. $6.50 to $6.10. I said it was profit taking. $6.10 to $5.70. I stopped saying anything. I just watched. My grain bins were full. My loan was due. I needed to sell, but I didn't want to sell at a loss. I waited. May 2022. Prices dropped to $5.20. I sold 100,000 bushels. $520,000. I pay the interest on my loan. I pay my property taxes. I pay my fuel bill. I had $200,000 left. I put it in the bank. June 2022. Prices dropped to $4.80. I sold another 100,000 bushels. $480,000. I paid my equipment loan. I paid my seed bill. I had $100,000 left. I put in the bank. July 2022. Prices dropped to $4.20. I had 200,000 bushels left, worth $840,000. I owed $800,000 on my loan. I had $40,000 in equity. I was underwater. Not technically, but close. August 2022. Prices dropped to $3.90. I had 200,000 bushels worth $780,000. I owed $800,000. I was upside down. I owed more than my crop was worth. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I lost 25 pounds. Martha asked if I was sick. I said no. She said, "You look sick." I said, "I'm fine." She didn't believe me. She stopped asking. September 2022. Harvest came. I had another 500,000 bushels, but prices were $3.70. My cost of production was $4.50. I lost 80 cents on every bushel. 500,000 bushels times 80 cents is $400,000 loss. Plus my existing loan. I was drowning. I sat in my truck at the edge of the field. I didn't move for 2 hours. Martha called. I didn't answer. October 2022. I couldn't make my loan payment. Farm Credit called. My loan officer was a woman named Beth. She had been my banker for 15 years. She knew my father. She knew my grandfather. She said, "Harold, we need to talk." I said, "I know." She said, "You're $800,000 in the hole." I said, "I know." She said, "We can restructure, but you'll have to sell land." I said, "How much?" She said, 400 acres. I said, "That's my son's inheritance." She said, "It's the bank's inheritance if you don't." I sold 400 acres. $6,000 an acre. $2.4 million. I paid off the loan. I had $1.6 million left. I pay my taxes. I pay my bills. I had $800,000 left. I put in the bank. I called Tom. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. I said, "I sold 400 acres. I'm sorry." He never called back. I was 62 years old. I had 2,100 acres left, down from 2,500. I had a new combine with 200 hours. I had a new planter with 100 hours. I had no debt, but I had no son to take over. Tom left. He moved to Des Moines. He works at an insurance company. He doesn't talk about farming. He doesn't talk about me. Martha told me she saw him at a gas station. She said he looked good. I said, "That's good." She said, "He asked about you." I said, "What did you say?" She said, "I said you're fine." I said, "I am fine." She didn't answer. My wife, Martha, doesn't talk about money. She doesn't ask. She just goes to work. She comes home. She watches TV. She goes to bed. We don't fight. We don't talk. We exist. Sometimes I think she blames me. Sometimes I think she's right. I am 64 now. I farm 2,100 acres alone. I have one employee, a guy named Dale. He's 55. He works for $25 an hour. He doesn't ask about the old days. He just drives the tractor. He doesn't know about Tom. He doesn't know about the $6.80 futures. He just knows how to plant corn. That's enough. Corn prices are $4.20 now. I break even. I don't make money. I don't lose money. I just exist. I wake up at 5 a.m. I drive to the field. I plant. I spray. I harvest. I go home. I eat dinner. I watch the news. I go to bed. I do it again. Dale does the same. We don't talk much. We don't need to. I think about 2022 sometimes. The $6.80 futures. The 400,000 bushels in my bins. The $1.6 million in equity. I should have sold. I should have retired. I should have given Tom the money. He could have started his own business. He could have bought a house. He could have been happy. Instead, he sells insurance. Instead, he doesn't call. Instead, I have 2,100 acres and no one to give them to. I didn't sell. I was greedy. I was scared. I was stupid. I wanted to be the hero. I became the fool. I learned something. You can't control the weather. You can't control the president. You can't control China. You can control your own greed. I didn't. Now I have 2,100 acres. No debt. No son. No retirement. I have a wife who doesn't talk to me. I have a combine that cost $520,000. I have a planter that cost $180,000. I have a grain bin that is half empty. I have Dale. I have the land. I have the memory of my father. I have the memory of my grandfather. I have $800,000 in the bank. That's it. That's my retirement. $800,000. At 64 years old, I could live on $40,000 a year for 20 years. That's not nothing. That's not everything. That's survival. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I'm a farmer. I'm still here. The land is still here. The corn still grows. The seasons still change. The tractor still runs. Dale still shows up. I will farm until I can't. Then I will sell the land. Then I will move to a condo. Then I will wait. I don't know what I'm waiting for. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe Tom will call. Maybe Martha will smile. Maybe the corn will hit $8. I don't believe in maybes anymore. My dad farmed until he was 72. He died in his tractor. Heart attack. They found him 3 hours later. The engine was still running. The planter was still in the ground. That's how I want to go. Not in a bed. Not in a hospital. In a tractor. In a field. With the smell of dirt and diesel. With the sun on my face. With the corn behind me. I am 64. I have maybe 10 years left. Maybe more. Maybe less. I will spend them here. On this land. In this field. With this corn. With Dale. With Martha. Even if she doesn't talk. With the memory of Tom. Even if he doesn't call. I will not bet on prices again. I will not borrow again. I will not expand again. I will just farm. 1 acre at a time. 1 bushel at a time. 1 day at a time. That's not winning. That's not losing. That's living. I'll take it.